chap called Thomas Ingerlath is the Polestar CEO. A really nice guy, actually, and he has some interesting thoughts on the situation in the USA regarding their tariffs that are going up to 100%. So in the USA, it's going to be very, very hard to buy a lot of cars that simply the state don't want you to buy. Let's go over what he said and why it's interesting. So Ingerlath highlighted that these tariffs seem to contradict the push for a greener future, which is, of course, the angle you'd expect him to have. He's the CEO, you know, he's got a job to protect. Polestar, which is based in Sweden, just near Gothenburg, actually. I was there recently, if you remember, maybe in February or March, and produces its cars in China. It directly is affected by these tariffs. It really, really is. So this move by the US government could make their cars much more expensive for American consumers, which in turn could slow down the adoption of EVs, something that we're all striving to increase, to combat climate change, or basically just having, for me personally, it's having a cleaner environment around us. I think that's the big thing, because no car is green. Certainly, if you need to go get milk, don't take your 2-ton Polestar. Just my humble opinion. So he also pointed out that these tariffs might lead to a less competitive market in the US by making imported EVs much more expensive, and the tariffs could potentially reduce the variety of choices available to consumers, which in the US, you're kind of stuck for choice. You don't have much. This isn't just a setback for companies like Polestar, but also for customers who are looking for diverse options. For example, you might be in the US and you don't have a Chevy Bolt this year to buy. You've got a Tesla Model 3, but you want a hatchback. You can't buy a BYD Dolphin. That sucks. The BYD Dolphin's brilliant. It's really good, really, really good. Why wouldn't you want one? So I would have to agree with this. And if the US keep going, it really could be pretty tragic for their EV market if local EV manufacturers don't try hard to serve the American population, and that is a big if. So, for example, GM have done the right thing. They've done two right things, actually, in my opinion, in the last year or two. One, they've helped their dealers get the right information, have people get test drives, and then get EVs to their customers when they've tried to sell them, and they aren't doing what Ford are doing, which is taking huge, like asking for it, like, what is it, $1.5 million a year just to be able to sell more than 10 electric vehicles as a franchise. That is a crap system. GM didn't do that. They were very, very good with their dealers. And the other one, they've decided to bring back the Bolt, the Chevy Bolt. So that's really, really good. Yes, I would argue that hopefully they are going to continue doing that and taking that route, as you would say in the US. But they are keeping their V8s on their production line, which sucks. And they've just said that they're not producing motors in their plant that they've had since 1952. They're going to produce V8s and V6s in it. Good decision. So one of the key points Ingerlath made was that about the broader implications for international trade and cooperation. He basically underlined that in order to truly move toward a sustainable future, I think in the next 100 years we might get to a more sustainable future, if anything, there needs to be a collaboration across borders rather than creating barriers. I think that's totally true, and I think that's an interesting perspective to have, especially considering how interconnected the globe is right now. Literally, I can send a message to a friend of mine in China and it will be with him in 5 seconds. It's the coolest thing. It's a very weird thing. So having these barriers there is just sucky, I think. Again, I would have to agree with him, though, generally. Why does this matter? I think that's probably a good question to answer. If I had to think about it, I'd say Polestar has been trying hard to sell their EVs. It's a classic case of how policy decisions have really far-reaching implications beyond just what you might see at first in the immediate economic effects. It could be the end of Polestar in the US. It really could be the end of a company that actually make really good cars. With no questions, they do make some of the best cars that you can buy, I think, right now. Maybe I wouldn't buy one because of the state of the stock price and the company in general, and it's not really... there are too many good options out there, but I really like Polestar vehicles. They're really, really good. They are only just staying alive there, I think, actually everywhere. The first quarter of 2024, they sold 40% less than they did in the first quarter last year. That is 40% less in sales in year on year. So 2023, they only sold 7% more than they did than in the year before. 7% rise in this day and age for a company that make good cars. Something's not right. I think there's people are afraid of giving money to a company where the company is in such dire situation. So they only sold 51,500 vehicles in 2022. If you put that into perspective, other manufacturers such as BYD, obviously it's been going a lot longer since they made small electronics in the late 90s and early 2000s, and then they started a car division, for example. Now, a lot of their cars aren't electric, but a lot of them are electric. They sold 3 million vehicles in 2023. 2023, and the year before, they sold 1.8 million. Excuse me. So in this space, it's quite possible to sell a lot of vehicles if people are happy to give the company money for what you're offering, and much more year on year than Polestar have done. So I wouldn't say, and I mean like if you do it percentage by percentage, I wouldn't say that they should give in because their cars are great. I really hope they can make it work, but they aren't doing too well if you are just being objective and just saying what you see. I think when your stock price looks like this, it's going to be hard to convince people to part with their hard-earned cash, their big dollars, to buy your stuff if they don't know if you're going to be there to keep your warranty on the battery, for example. How do they know? Especially now, why would you buy a Fisker if the company is in such a bad state? And they can say anything. They could say 30-year battery warranty, unlimited kilometers. What if they're not there to even call? So how does that work? It's just common sense. So this is why legacy brands had a good opportunity, I think, to get their foot in the door, to get that head start with their loyal customers, such as me. I love Toyota, and second, I love Honda for all of my life, really, because basically most mechanics, and certainly every mechanic I've literally asked in real life, Toyotas are the cars that have the best cars. Hondas are less good cars, but they have better engines, and you can always basically rely on a switch working in a Toyota. They are super, super good. Maybe you could say less good these days. Fair enough, but now there's all sorts of challenge and competition out there, so it's a bit harder these days to just be a Toyota and a Honda fanboy when actually you've got all these other brands like BYD, for example. Anyone who's sat in an MG4, base model MG4 in black, that price is brilliant. With LFP battery chemistry, looks as good as it does. That's a really good price. How can you not like that? And they are reliable. People have had really good experiences with them. One or two haven't, but that's same with Toyota, for example. Anyone who remembers the BZ4X, and I refuse to say BZ4X, I'm English, and yeah, they had wheels falling off a few times, but I mean, what can you do? What do you think about Ingelath's comments on this? Do you think these tariffs seem counterproductive to you, or do you think they serve a real necessary purpose, and that the Biden administration are bang on with their decision? Let's discuss it in the comments below. I'm going to make a special effort as soon as this video goes live for a few hours to sit there and be ready and waiting to comment. I'll be doing other things too, but I will check. I normally do. I sit there and I'll happily have a chat. If you want to keep up with more updates on what's going on in the EV world, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I'm Ben Alexander, and for those of you that are new, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your time. I know people these days are under the pump a lot, and it is very nice and touching that people sit and watch me on a daily basis, so that's pretty nice. Thank you very much. And also those people, there are some people that chuck a few, I think it's $1 or something on $1 a month on YouTube memberships, and I have Patreon too. Some people go on there and join for a couple of months and they back out and they join again. It's really nice. Thank you very much for helping me do that, especially when I'm not always super consistent with my videos.